filming a series for Sonic Academy, this time on my Deadmau5 remix. With my Devil's Advocate Halloween costume on, I'm not sure I completely agree with you about stealing versus inspiration. I have watched an episode and a half of The Expanse. Most art has a commercial motivation, but maybe we can do a general tips question. Hey guys, welcome to the Kane audio vlog. It's Friday, it's time for another Ask Me Anything. Usual rules apply. Comment anything you want below this video and I'll get back to you in next week's video. Before I look at last week's video, is there any house admin? What have I been doing this week? The last couple of weeks I've been doing mostly admin type stuff. I have started filming a series for Sonic Academy, this time on my Deadmau5 remix for Mousetrap, so keep your eyes peeled for that. I don't have any release dates or anything booked in for that yet, so I'll let you know when I do. What else have I been doing? Not so much. No, don't think so. So yeah, I don't think there's any real proper questions this week, unfortunately. We'll have a look though. So I think this is going to be a very short episode. Hopefully there will be more next week. Starting at the top, Ricky John McGregor, high five. Totally agree what you said with what you said about inspiration/theft and the importance of music theory. To add to that, most of us only use the same 12 notes, 7 or 8 if we're sticking to one scale per track. Thanks for your insight, have a good weekend. Someone else has commented on this as well. Yeah, here we go. So Cavalcade down here, just because I feel like they're two comments of opposition. Hey Dom, McGregor, high five. No idea if that's the correct spelling. It is. With my Devil's Advocate Halloween costume on, I'm not sure I completely agree with you about stealing versus inspiration. I think we've all been conditioned over the past few decades to accept the idea that music is property to be defended at all costs. This seems at odds with the previous few hundred years, during which there seemed to be a fundamentally different attitude to music and arts in general. As you know well, there are only 12 notes in the Western equal temperament octave, and as Schoenberg proved, there are a limited number of ways those notes can be combined that our ears interpret as pleasant, well, our brains rather than ears, if I'm going to be pedantic. Throughout classical music history, the work of our predecessors has been referenced and paid tribute to, or quote-unquote stolen, from Mozart's use of Alberti bass to Dvorak and Mahler ripping off or paying tribute to Beethoven, and countless other examples. This was the case in popular music as well to some extent, e.g. most of Motown, until the litigation juggernaut attained its current overpowering momentum. Personally, I find theft a somewhat pejorative term when referring to art of any kind, but particularly music. I think that's by design, and as I say, due to us being conditioned by the industry to think in those terms. Surely when we hear accusations being levelled against other creators of theft, unless we're talking carbon copy plagiarism, that's surely a dead giveaway that the accuser is creating music for primarily commercial rather than artistic reasons, isn't it? Right, philosophical hand grenade lobbed. I'm off to listen to Tonal Display. Have a great week. Maybe watch The Expanse. Okay, so first of all, I have watched an episode and a half of The Expanse, you will all be pleased to know. However, I'm not feeling it 100% yet. I'm only like 1.5 episodes in, So I will watch more, because even though I'm one of those people that I like the first half an hour of a film, if it doesn't grab me, I'm done. You know, so I will admit I am one of those people. But when I know it's a series, and I know there are 4 series, and I know certain people are ranting and raving about it, I'll give it more than one episode. So yeah, so that's that bit out of the way. That's The Expanse done. However, so first of all, I love your comment, and I completely agree with, well, pretty much all of it. So what I will say is, I was also being quite facetious, to be honest. I was saying about calling it theft in a tongue-in-cheek way, but I think there are some serious issues there. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, music is an art form, and I think we should be able to take inspiration from anything. And of course, there is a difference when it's carbon copy plagiarism, as you say. And I do sometimes wonder where the industry is going, because as you sort of rightly point out, that it does seem like the whole litigation side of stuff is becoming a bit too prominent. I think we've talked about it on these AMAs, actually. The what's it called? That I was about to say some slanderous things. Robin Thicke, I want to say. I won't say anything slanderous, but I'll definitely call him a creep. I mean, he looks like one, he sounds like one. He's a creep, in my opinion. Yeah. There was that, and there was another one. I'm sure it was an Ed Sheeran one, who is the opposite of a creep. And I'm sure there was another one. There was a stint of sort of 3 big cases a few years ago, and all 3 of them, I seem to remember. I could be getting confused with these ones, but I'm sure at least those 2. And I remember listening to their songs and the ones that claimed that they were ripping off, and they were hardly similar. I mean, they shared a few notes and or maybe a bit of timing. It wasn't a shared melody, and I think this is where we start treading on dangerous ground. So traditionally or historically, you've been able to copyright the top line melody, but not the chord progression, because there are so few chord progressions and there are so few variations in chord progression. So if, for example, you're doing a specific genre, the timing is very rigid, otherwise it wouldn't be that genre. So you don't really have much room to play in a genre when it comes to chord progressions or bass line notes. So they were never really very copyrightable. They were never really considered intellectual property. However, with Beethoven and Mozart, as far as I'm aware, it was as far back as then, sheet music was copyrighted. It was intellectual property, and actually they were making good money from it by selling sheet music. So I think that needs to probably be pointed out. I'm fairly sure that's true. I could be wrong. I never studied music history. So I think there's always been a commercial aspect to art. And I think if we're totally honest, and this is why I said it tongue-in-cheek, and I think this is the important bit, is if we're totally honest, I would say most art has a commercial motivation or a capitalist motivation. I think that's fair to say. Look, I hold hand on heart, and I think most followers of this channel will know that I consider the art of my music very important, and I like to push boundaries of not just the art but the process and the techniques. However, I'm the first one to admit I need to pay my bills. I've got a mortgage and kids to pay for, and I'm not doing all of this for free. Well, I'm doing all of this for free, these AMAs, unless, of course, you support my Patreon account, in which case there's a link below this video. You've got to capitalise on that, even if it is ironically. But the point I'm trying to say is that, I do earn money from music, and, I don't earn money from these AMAs or whatever, so I do a lot for the art that is just purely for the art and not for money. And to my knowledge, I don't think I ever earn anything indirectly from these AMAs either. I don't think. So I think I can quite safely say the motivation is the art, the process, the technique, the learning, the knowledge, the sharing, whatever, I think. But I think with my music and music production, as much as I try and keep things steered towards the art, I'm also very aware that some things make more money than others, and that doing certain things certain ways may or may not be more lucrative for me. So I think we need to be honest with ourselves in that I'm hesitant to say there's no such thing, but there are very few artists in the world that don't have any financial motivation, I think. And we talk about the hunger of an artist. Sometimes it's the hunger that drives you. I've talked about that before, where I've said about, when I first took the leap to becoming self-employed, it was that hunger that drove me, and I mean literal hunger in some ways. So anyway, going back to the copyright, so yes, I was being facetious, and I was only really joking, saying that inspiration is theft, which is what, for anyone who's just tuned into this video and is wondering what the hell my 10-minute rant is about, I think I made a claim of saying something like inspiration/theft. There's not really much different. And I meant it in a facetious way. But we kind of are stealing ideas sometimes, is what I'm saying. So, for example, I might hear a 4 or 5 note cadence in a sci-fi film, and I'll fall in love with that 4 or 5 note cadence, and I'll use that in a track of mine that's progressive house. To me, that is inspiration, and I think the vast majority of people would say it's more inspiration than theft. But the reality is I kind of stole it wasn't my original idea, but then we get into this whole philosophical thing of what is an original idea, and I really don't want to go down that road. I have a book, if anyone wants to go down that road, called The Creative Mind. I forget who wrote it, but I can find out if anyone gives a shit. A very difficult read, but it talks about original thought, and when a child is growing up and they realise something or work something out for the first time, it's not necessarily original thought. It might be original to them, but it's not original to humanity, and therefore where do we draw the line of originality? Similarly, to draw that into music, yes, we've only got 12, or let's be honest, 7 notes in a scale. 8 if you want to count the repetition of an octave, which doesn't make any sense, because in which case then we've got infinite, because you've got infinite octaves, or that's a complete lie, not infinite, but 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz at least. You've got infinite, you just can't hear them. So based on that, yes, you've only got 7 notes, but you've also got a whole host of variations of timing and sound design and emotion and harmony and things like that. So again, you only have 7 notes, but actually those combinations, they could be 2 note, 3 note, 4 note, 5 note chords, they can bring in and add dissonance and resonance, and there's value in each part of each harmony. So really, you know, that's why, you know, yes, we have 7 notes, but there aren't 7 songs, you know, because we use a multitude of combinations and factors in those things. So is there room for originality? Yeah, I think so. Have we done has humankind created every possible combination of notes and timings and sequences? I doubt that very much. So I'm kind of reluctant to say, oh, there's only 7 notes in a scale, because that's kind of irrelevant, you know. I don't think that's you know, that's not a measurement of, you know, the number of notes available isn't really a measurement of how many melodies you can write. I think I'm right in saying that. But anyway, yes. So I'm agreeing with you on the whole, and I'm glad, who was it, Ricky John agrees with me. So there we go. Moving on. Gold Toast. Hey Dom McGregor, high five. Couldn't really think of any question this week. Therefore, my late comment, but maybe we can do a general tips question. So what are some of your general tips you can share? Maybe something that made you improve, or you thought you wished you thought you'd learned sooner. Whatever it could be about production, mastering, business, whatever. Cheers. I actually got asked this not so long ago, I think, and I struggled to answer then, so I'm probably going to struggle again now. I would say, in a general piece of advice, when it comes to business, if you want your business to be a commercial success, then you probably need capital investment. I think that's fair to say. I think that's one of the things that took me a long time to learn. You know, I came from a very sort of punk background way of doing things. So set up your own record label, whatever, print your own vinyl, whatever. And I remember seeing other labels, and this is back in the day when labels made money. I remember seeing other labels just making a fortune and couldn't work out how. And the same then with the whole, when the internet boomed, and I saw people would have a website doing something. In fact, I won't say what, because it becomes obvious who they are, but certain websites would be selling something digitally and would start turning over huge sums of money. And I often wondered, well, how the hell did they do that? You know, I've got other friends with a better product, and I mean objectively better product, we're not talking music, and that never fully got off the ground. And it took me a long time before eventually another friend of mine set up a website, I want to say selling plugins or loops or something like that. And I remember him saying that to get to launch, he needed 100 grand. And I remember thinking, what? How is it 100 grand to make a website? And it was me being naive. I then, you know, obviously had it explained to me that it's not 100 grand to make the website, but to make the website, if you want it fully ready and prepped and e-commerce friendly and whatever, and scalable and all of these things, then, you know, you were looking at thousands and thousands of pounds. But it was the marketing and getting everything to on launch to suddenly be busy and drive traffic to these things. You know, it's very rare that you can't plan for a business to be successful organically. And the reason I'm saying all of this is because I don't want to burst any bubbles, but all of us as producers think, you know, I'm going to make a track that becomes a hit and whatever, whether it be an underground hit or whatever, and we all think that we're going to be able to somehow do that special thing, and we all witness what appears to be that day in, day out. We see people who are now superstar DJ producers, whatever, and they're just shooting to fame and suddenly headlining all the festivals. Well, I can tell you right now, to be getting put onto festivals, you need to already be booked sort of 6 to 12 months in advance. So I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but there are DJs who appear to become famous in March, April, and then they're suddenly headlining festivals or playing festivals July, August that year. Well, when you do the math and you work out that that festival, if it was a big festival, will have had their lineup at least 6 months in advance, probably 12 months in advance. They may or may not had a couple of empty spaces where they wait for someone to be a big rising star, but usually there's a lot more than you think goes on in the background. So as much as I don't want to burst any bubbles, because that's not what I'm out to do, I do also think that I think with that information in mind, hopefully anyone who's watching this who wants to shoot to fame and fortune, I hope that gives you a more realistic view and maybe gives you an idea of what you need to do to achieve that, because that means it's not unachievable. You just need a certain few things in place. So if, for example, like I say, the DJs at festivals thing, it means you need a good manager and a good booking agent and perhaps a PR person or team or whatever involved, and in order to have that on board, you probably already need a good solid product, i.e. you and your music are ready to go, taken off the shelf. So that means having 10, 20 tracks ready to be signed by big labels, whatever. You can work it out. I would say that's probably my best business tip, is just, like I say, I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to be optimistic about it. And I think with that knowledge, it should put you in a better position, I think. As for production and mastering, yeah, I think that's where someone asked me before, and that's where I really struggled with an answer. What did I do in the production world that suddenly made things improve? I honestly don't know, and I think that's important to say that I don't know, because there isn't a magic solution. There isn't an overnight thing that occurs. There isn't an event or a milestone that makes you go, holy shit, now I'm a great producer because I've learned this, now I understand this compressor, I'm good at my job, or whatever. It's just not how it works. And I think that's important to understand that actually, it takes years and years of just learning bits and pieces here and there, and you just get better and better over time, I hope. Yeah, and I think that's probably important. So not that that's saying your question isn't good, because it is an important question, but I think the answer is very difficult, in that without me sitting down and thinking about specific tips, it's very difficult for me to name one thing that changed everything for me. I'm still trying to think of stuff, but I can't. Anyway, there we go. I think that's that. Zombo, love your video, Dom. Have a great weekend. And you. Yanis Lukmelis, McGregor, high five. John Bloomfield, McGregor, high five. St. Nicholas, McGregor, high five. And that, my friends, is it for Ask Me Anything 88. We are fast approaching 100. I feel like I should probably do something special for that again, but I don't know what that is. Yeah, if you've got ideas, let me know. Other than that, if you have questions, please do get involved, because the more questions I have, the better these videos can be. So, to prove that you've made it this far into the video, comment the word let me have a look. Oh, I can see a recommendation of my own video here, Mixdown Session Part 2. So comment the word Mixdown, and I will see you this time next week. Have a good weekend. Cheers.